Up and running, and Villa is loud.
Hello and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. I'm still trying to get over the new festive intro there as we have Christmas approaching. But you're here for the bite-sized preview where we take a little bit of a condensed look at the upcoming game, Bournemouth versus Aston Villa, and we get an opposition perspective. And joining me for that is no other than Craig from the Up the Cherries in All Departments YouTube channel. There we go, I got it right.
Yeah, there we are, mate.
To talk all things Bournemouth and also maybe look at some players who represented both clubs. So, Craig, thank you for jumping on. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. And things have picked up a little bit recently at Dean Court. So fingers crossed we can keep that going. I know it probably be, something that you're hoping you can put an end to, but we need the points on the board as soon as possible, really.
Yeah, well, it's all shaping up to be a really good match, as
Mhm.
a key game, as all tend to be in the Premier League. Every week it's relentless.
Yeah.
Just before we get into it, though, guys, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and yeah, comment down below your thoughts on Bournemouth, your thoughts on how Villa might approach it, your thoughts on the score predictions in this game. So I try and interact with all the comments, so get involved in the chat. Um, yes, Craig, you mentioned kind of things are looking up
Mhm.
at Dean Court or the Vitality Stadium, and yeah, I kind of wanted your thoughts on how the season has gone so far, because I say roller coaster would probably be doing it some injustice as to what you guys have gone through over the pre-season and the season so far.
Yeah, so as everybody will know, I was a big supporter of Gary O'Neill, and I thought he did a fantastic job last season. Firstly, just to recap, of course, Scott Parker was sacked after that thrashing by Liverpool. And what Scott was doing was going way too defensive and inviting the pressure on, and Liverpool picked us off. Of course, his comments afterwards were no good for anybody. Of course, the first game of the season, he got a very, very good result against yourselves.
Yes, yes.
And of course, it's all been changed between two sides since. But I think what Gary did when he took over, and I actually spoke to Robbie Savage and Chris Sutton, and I said, Scott Parker has to be sacked. And they were like, well, he's got you up, he's got you promoted. But it's the case of how he was saying things, how he was approaching the season. He already had asked for more money, to buy players. And Maxim Dem, who has been very, very supportive of this football club, wasn't able to offer it at the time because of the takeover. We didn't really know that at that point, and he had to make a big call. And he did it for not for his sake, because he could have let Scott just carry on. We would have probably ended up being relegated if he had. But he made the change to go with Gary O'Neill, and Gary got it was the most drab performance of the season by both sides, but a nil-nil draw against Wolves. And from there, it was just strength to strength. We went to Nottingham Forest. It was 2-0 down. We ended up winning 3-2. And between that Liverpool game and the game that we lost next, which was Southampton, every team in the Premier League had been beaten apart from Bournemouth. So Gary, in my eyes, although he didn't play the most attractive football, got the results that we needed. Of course, I was completely shocked. I was quite angry at the time when he was sacked by Bill Foley, because I thought, well, he's kept us in the Premier League. This could be something that's going to come back to haunt us, and it looked like it was going to. But going back to that day, it was literally, it was very, very quick,
Mm.
how Iraola was appointed. And there was a lot of names being bounded about. Steven Gerrard was one at the time. Frank Lampard was being mentioned as well. Um, Jesse Marsh, who I'll come back to that as well, because I did make a video which did go a little bit viral about that. And I thought, crikey, these are all names that I don't want. Um, of course, Unai Emery had already done a fantastic job with Aston Villa getting you into those European spots from what looked like it was going to be a difficult task to keep Villa in the Premier League, after what Gerrard had left him.
Yeah.
Um, but Andoni Iraola was announced, and I thought, right, okay, I understand why they've done that at this point, because this man, knowing a bit about Spanish football, has done a fantastic job at Rayo Vallecano, and it made sense at that point. So the season started. Got a draw against West Ham. We drew against Chelsea. We had 3 points on the board though. We was going into, and there was three fixtures that really did it for me. Um, the Brighton game, which we was 1-0 up against, and then just completely capitulated. How you concede a goal after, I think it was 15 seconds from your own kickoff. It was honestly, it's worth watching back for all Villa fans because it was nigh on embarrassing. Um, the one that did it for me, we got beat by Arsenal 4-0. Arsenal were a decent side, but it was the manner that happened. And then we travelled to Everton, and this was the game where I thought, I'm wrong. You know, Bill Foley's wrong, and we were thrashed 3-0. It could have been more. It
Yeah.
could have been more. Um, But that seemed to be a little bit of a turning point, and things started to pick up a little bit. Iriola was playing this high press style, as you see from Unai Emery and Mikel Arteta. The difference is, and like me and Martin were speaking on my show yesterday, is that Aston Villa have got better quality of player. We're not going to lie about that. Arsenal got better quality of players. You come up against City doing what we did, you get beat 6-1, which is what happened. Um, but the game against Burnley, it was lucky. It was lucky because they did have one disallowed, a Jay
Mm.
Rodriguez goal. It was literally, a toenail
Mm.
offside. So we were lucky with that. Um, but the game against Newcastle, okay, they had a lot of injuries. So there's still work to be done for Iriola to convince me. But
Yeah.
I think he's getting it because he's changed that style to a little bit more direct. He's changed it to what effectively I've been saying that what Gary O'Neill did, but probably more what Eddie was doing, which is
Yeah.
more attack
Yeah.
minded, not passing around, more fluent. That Eddie Howe style of football he seems to employ, and that's working at this moment in time. The game against Sheffield United last week, it could have been a lot more than 3-1. Sheffield United were poor. Um, I've been saying it's 3-0, but I completely forgot their goal at the
They
end,
got
which to be on,
97th minute. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
to be honest, which I honestly, they were lucky really to get that. So yeah, I think the
So
jury's still out on it.
yeah, I was going to say the jury's
Yeah,
still out slightly, but you're seeing those shoots of
progress.
recovery, and,
Yeah.
and maybe I guess, I mean, what us as Villa fans had with Emery was that he came in and immediately kind of implemented like he got the first result against Man United, which was great, but he saw quickly what he could do, like in terms of small steps, small
Mhm.
changes that he could do to kind of get a couple of results on the board. And sometimes that's what you need as a manager coming in. You need to get a couple of results quickly because then you then give yourself more leverage to make other changes. Whereas
Yeah.
maybe Iraola kind of went in all guns blazing. This is how we're going to play. This is what we're going to do. This is my way or the highway. It hasn't quite worked. Like you say, it could be due to players not quite being good enough. It could be due to players, being too used to the other style. So he's kind of gone in between that,
Yeah.
and then he's picked up a few results, and maybe then he can start to kind of implement more of his own ideas and tactics as you go. So it's going to be an interesting watch, because I was like, at the start of the season, I was like, I can see Bournemouth like struggling, and then when it started the season, I was like, bloody hell, like they really
Mm.
are. And now you're kind of seeing, and I saw at the Newcastle game, and I thought, you know what, they've still got some really good players. They've still got an effective way of playing. They're still dangerous in attack. Obviously, that home ground as well is a tough place to go for any team, and I think now it'll be one to, can you build from that? Can you keep pushing on and picking up results that you probably, in quotes, should be beating against, winning against the teams that are around you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is going to be an interesting matchup, because I spoke to Mikel Starry, and the interview is actually on the channel as well. Um, I had to narrate it all because Mikel's English is not good at all, but he was the former Basque national team manager. And what he actually explained to me is how the Basque way of playing and his mentorship of Emery, Mikel Arteta, Andoni Iraola, Julian Lopetegui, and Xabi Alonso. And they've all got this style of playing. They've all got this pressing from the front, you know, make making sure they contain the ball as much as possible. And that's great, but I think it takes players that are very, very fit, and maybe adapting to that after playing under Scott Parker and Gary O'Neill so quickly was always going to be difficult. I'd love to see him go back to that way, because thinking back to the game against West Ham and against Chelsea, the performances were good. Brentford as well away, the performances were good, but
Mm,
it's a case that maybe just the players just weren't adapting to it. It seems like and what was weird about it as well, Rich, is it was a happy camp. You could see it was a happy camp. And you're thinking, well, why are we not getting these results? Why are we not doing better than we are? Why are we capitulating against a team like Everton, who, let me be honest, were poor that day, as well, but we made them look like Barcelona.
mm,
A side that Iriola got the better of, on several occasions. And I think it's because he didn't really research, he didn't really know much about a team like Everton. You know, we played in our style, and of course, Sean Dyche has come up to him, and it's just not worked. He's played the long ball, he knows what to do, make it as difficult as possible, and they ran out deserved 3-0 winners.
mm,
But
mhm,
you
mhm.
know, they weren't particularly very good that day. So there is shoots of encouragement now. There's still a long
Yeah.
way to go. But when you look at it, we've only beaten the two promoted teams, apart from Luton, who are coming up in a couple of weeks. Those two promoted teams are deservedly on less points than Derby were at
Mm.
this time of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
season.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it shows how good they are, and a depleted Newcastle side. Um,
yeah, yeah. You make a good point. Just before we get on to kind of the upcoming game and what we kind of expecting from that, um, what just briefly, what have you made of Villa's start to this season? From an outsider's point of view, I don't know how much you've watched of them, but yeah, in terms of looking at league position, results that they've got, what have you made of Villa's start?
I've watched quite a bit, and I tell you what, outstanding, outstanding. Firstly, very probably the best goalkeeper in the Premier League at this moment in time in Emi Martinez. Um, you know, after winning the World Cup, you know, always thought, okay, what's he going to do next? But he's shown loyalty to stay with Aston Villa. I'm no doubt there was suitors, but he hasn't. He's just got on with it, and full credit to him. He's a quality goalkeeper, best in the Premier League by far at this moment in time. You know, going forwards, you've got Ollie Watkins. I know that he might be out of this game, but um, he's again been outstanding. You know, his attacking price. Um, Matty Cash, fantastic defender. You know,
Hmm.
really do rate him. Um, Zaniolo was a player that you know we was going to sign back in. Well, I say was going to sign. What happened was, and Mark McAdam probably explains this better than I did. I'm going to now, but what happened was we went over to Roma and said, "Okay, we're interested in Vina, who we did eventually sign." And they said, "Okay, fine. Have you not looked at Zaniolo?" And of course, Bournemouth being Bournemouth, we went, "He's not going to come to us." Um, but we went in. We wanted to speak to the player. We did speak to the player, and the player kind of walked away from it. And thought nothing more of it. You know, this is from what all behind closed doors at the time. And then later on in the window, because Roma fans were really getting back on Zaniolo's back, actually approached the club saying, "Actually, I'd like to come." By that time, we'd already made the signings that we had, so it wasn't possible.
Hmm.
But you know, from what I understand, he's not been brilliant.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't quite hit the heights. He's had one or two flashes, and one or two parts where he probably could have scored, where he's been a bit unlucky. But there's still a lot more to come. And in terms of getting used to the pace of the Premier League, and the speed of play that you've got to have, like I think he wants
Yeah,
one or two more splits. It's literally split seconds that you're talking about, but it means a lot in the Premier League. Admittedly, sometimes he's coming on into a game that he's got to get to the pace of, which is a little bit more difficult. But I think where Villa have been so they've had have had injuries. Don't get me wrong. Buendia and Mings getting injured at the start of the season for long term, and then Ramsey and Moreno just coming back now, which is the cliche, like two new
yeah,
signings coming up. But where we've done really well is that we've got options. So before we've in previous seasons, we've had Jack Grealish or we've had Ollie Watkins, for example, where it's like if they don't score or if they don't do anything,
yeah,
we're struggling. Now we've got so many options. Diaby, Leon Bailey, who's been phenomenal this season,
yeah.
Ollie Watkins, John McGinn, Douglas Luiz, again phenomenal this season. Jacob Ramsey coming back. So it's like if one or even two of those players aren't firing, we've got players who can equally contribute and score that in that game, and we've got different ways to attack teams, which is what as Villa fans we just amazed to see. Still, it's crazy to watch.
And this is what was quite interesting actually, because at the start of the season, have these teams that go into Europe and they really struggle because they haven't got the depth. Wolves did it. Brighton, to some extent, have done it. Um, and I thought that Villa was going to probably struggle a little bit because of the amount of games that you're going to be
Mm,
playing, and have played so far. But in fact, Unai Emery has managed the squad so well that he's got you're firing on all cylinders. You know, in Europe, I know that you only need a point. You know, after that Legia Warsaw game, and let me say, what happened, you know, after that game was atrocious. And to be honest, Legia Warsaw needs to be punished for that. Um, but you know, in the Premier League, if you win this game, if all the ducks are in a row, you could be top of the
I know
league.
it's
It's,
crazy. It's
yeah,
crazy, and yet pundits are kind of almost waiting for, which I guess is understandable a little bit, but waiting for us to fail and then it'll be like, oh, they've lost to Bournemouth, and then they've got Man City and Arsenal coming up, and it's going to be difficult for them to maintain. And look, we haven't done anything yet, of course, but it's just recent history doesn't suggest that, even if we did lose to Bournemouth, doesn't suggest that we then automatically go on a losing run. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. So just coming on to the game on
Mhm.
Sunday with regards to Bournemouth, I noticed a fair few injuries, and I don't know how
Yes.
key a lot of those players are. I know Lloyd Kelly's out for a little while, but who's kind of who are the key men for you guys at the moment, and how are you expecting Iraola to approach the game?
I think what we'll do is we'll play the same team really, minus Lloyd Kelly, that we played up at Sheffield United. Um, I think the one change is probably going to be Kirkes coming in for Kelly. Um, Justin Clivert has really hit the ground running
Mm, yes.
recently, so he's looking very, very good now. Um, Phil Billing, I think, was struggling a little bit under Iraola because in the Gary O'Neill side, he was playing in a bit more of an advanced position, which was working alongside Solanke. Um, However, he was playing too deep, and it just didn't seem to have that effect. He was also making a few mistakes. Do check out that goal that we conceded against Wolves, which was incredibly embarrassing, considering it was Gary O'Neill. And I did think, after that, if Iraola had lost that Burnley game, we wouldn't be talking about Iraola, we'd be talking about somebody else. Um, but Clivert's been excellent. I think Marcus Tavernier, of course, he scored 2 goals up at Sheffield United. He's an excellent player on his day. Against Fulham last season, the goal that he scored, the winner, was it was top bins, so to
Yeah, he's
say.
he's
Yeah.
always got he always seems to have like a moment of
hmm
brilliance in him, like a brilliant goal or something that will cause an assist, where he beats two or three players, like out, not out of nothing as such, because he knows he's got it in his locker, but yeah, just something that where he grabs the game. But what I've always been impressed with Bournemouth is that pace out wide.
Yeah.
And they tend to, Solanke's playing well at the moment as well, so they've got a figurehead or a player to hit, but also kind of that physicality, and that's something that Villa have always struggled against with regards to playing Bournemouth, particularly when you guys are at home.
Well, it's good that you actually mentioned the pace there, Rich, because one player that has really shone this season is Anton Semenyo. Now, of course, signed from Bristol City during the January window, I should say, didn't really hit the ground running. He at Bristol City, from the fans that I spoke to, sometimes blew hot and cold. Sometimes he was unplayable, sometimes he didn't really play. In the sense that he just wasn't effective. You know, in this side, Iriola is seeming to get the best out of him, and the talent he's got. He, to be honest, he's got to be one of the first names on the team sheet at the moment. And before this game, the game last week against Sheffield United, I said, why is he not playing Brooks? Brooks, of course,
Hmm.
battle, had that really, really awful battle against Hodgkin lymphoma. And luckily, in fact, the day it was all announced that he got the all clear was the day that we was promoted against Nottingham Forest to the Premier League. So it was a very, very special day with double celebration. But he's built himself back up. And, from what I've seen of Brooks, so far this season, he's excellent. He's
Mm.
excellent. It looks like he's where he left off. There was one game against Luton where he was struggling. I think during that game was, well, in between that game, he'd actually had all the tests. So, of course, there was a lot playing on his mind. You can fully understand why, his mind might have been elsewhere
Yeah.
during that game. But he's got back to the stage, where he left off. And I never saw that happening. And I've been calling out for him to come into the side. But what Iraola's done with Tavernier and Semenyo and Justin Kluivert there in the middle as well is working. You've got Ryan Christie and Lewis Cook that are sitting a little bit further back. Lewis Cook, is a completely different player on the ball.
Underrated player, isn't he? Yeah,
He is, yeah. And I
yeah.
think in a way, what I've been saying is that, Iraola's not been playing to the player's strengths, but you could make the argument the other way that Iraola has found the best position for Lewis Cook to utilise him the best that any manager has, including probably Eddie Howe.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Well, look, like I said, you've got some good players, but I think we'll finish up with score predictions. We're going to
Yeah,
have a
of
little
course,
look at
no
some
problem.
past players, but I think in a second. But yeah, I think it's it is a potential banana skin for Villa. It is a ground where we don't historically, although we haven't met each other too many times, do that well in. And I think if we can, it's going to be interesting seeing the two managers pitting up against each other because, yeah, you guys have got those weapons in areas where, like our fullbacks, like Luca Dean's been brilliant this season, and I'll put Martin's predicted lineup that he's going for yesterday. But as I say, we've got lots of different options that we can play. But I do think that you go put Matty Cash back in his favoured position and Luca Dean back in at left back and not Moreno, who played 80 minutes on Thursday.
Mhm.
However, those wide areas, those two fullbacks have got to be really on it to defend those 1v1 situations well. And then it'll be down to Villa. Can they get enough ball in the midfield area to maybe overload? What we've done really well is those four in midfield. We're missing Boubacar Kamara on Sunday. So it's four in midfield, whether that be Louise, McGinn, um, Tielemans, Ramsey, maybe even a Dendoncker. I'm not so sure about him, but they've got to make sure that they make that count and then release whether it's Diaby, Watkins if he starts, he's a doubt, or Bailey, and they're able to kind of do that. Because if we can do that, then I think that quality will shine through. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. So just pop a pin in your predictions for now. We're just going to take a
Yep, no
quick
problem.
a quick look down memory lane at some players who have featured for the clubs. And when we did this before, and I'll just talk through a few and then kind of any that kind of bring good memories to you. But when we first looked at it, we thought, well, there can't be too many. But then, if we go right back in the years, we've had Warren
Mhm.
Aspinall, Sean Teal, bit of a
Sean.
Villa cult hero. I don't know if has he got the same reputation at Bournemouth as he has at Villa.
Yeah, I think he has. To be honest, he's always been a tough player, and
Yeah,
in fact, in an absolute legend. I actually had the pleasure of interviewing him, and
yeah, good guy. Yeah, good
he
guy,
is
really good guy.
absolutely
Yeah,
lovely bloke. Interesting story with him and Harry Redknapp that he did tell me as well. Harry's been on the show quite a few times, so hopefully they've not seen each other's videos. But but yeah, Sean's a really good bloke. And I think he's in the construction trade now, isn't he? Didn't
yeah,
say
and
anything.
I think he did do. I don't know if he does, but he did dip his hand into coaching and stuff as well. But yeah,
Mm.
Villa cult hero. Orjan Neeland, obviously famous for the ghost goal for Villa.
Yes.
Ryan Bertrand I think played for both clubs.
Hmm.
Lewis Graben was a brief time at Villa, but obviously I
Yeah, legend.
believe well
Ian.
liked at Bournemouth. Yeah.
Yeah, very well liked.
Um, Tommy Elphick again really enhanced his reputation at Villa after coming back from a couple of bad injuries. But again, legend at your club.
Yeah.
Danny
Still
Ings.
part of the coaching team as well, actually.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
excellent,
Tommy
excellent.
Ilford. Yeah, you might see him on the bench as well. So he seems to be, because what's funny about Iriola is he hasn't had his number two. So I think that's it's getting there. It's getting there. But of
Yeah,
course, Tommy Elphick has been on the bench alongside Sean Cooper. So yeah, no doubt you probably will see him.
Yeah. And then most recently, Danny Ings didn't quite hit the heights at Villa, but yeah, obviously good spell at Bournemouth, and our man, Mr. Mings, again had a good had an injury hit spell at Bournemouth. I
Yeah.
think was promised a lot, but for whatever reason couldn't work it out. But at Villa, he's been a true legend, and hopefully he gets back to full fitness either this season or into next. But yeah, quite a few players that have represented both clubs, mate.
Yeah, definitely, and I
Yeah.
think Tyrone's somebody I've met, personally, and he's such a dedicated professional, even though, he had all the struggles with injuries and, when he wasn't injured, he wasn't ever really picked for Bournemouth.
Mm,
Um, he always gave 110%. He always kept his head down, and it's great to see him succeeding. Of course, we've spoken about Mr. Teal, Danny Ings, of course, a player who was instrumental for us back in the day, as we were charging up the divisions. Unfortunately, only had him for a short spell, because at that point we were a little bit of a selling club. Um, but yeah, there's been quite a few players between the two. Of
yeah.
course, David James as well. He didn't have much
Character,
time here.
big character,
Oh, he
big
was.
character.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was. He didn't have
yeah,
much time here, unfortunately. But um, it was the latter stages of his career,
yeah,
because again,
yeah,
we were a lowly League One, League Two sides, at the time. So yeah, um,
yeah. Good. Well, good memories. And guys, let us know your
yes,
thoughts in the comments on any other players that have represented both clubs. Before we get our match predictions, just a quick shout out to the channel again. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you are new. We are literally 2 subscribers away from 2,750. We want to hit the 3K before Christmas. You can help us get there. So like, subscribe, and comment down below so you spread the word of the channel. So, mate, great chatting to you. We've got to get your match prediction in before we finish. I know you were in the chat on our live show
yeah,
yesterday, but what are you saying for tomorrow's score and scorers?
it's going to be very, very difficult. But I'm not going to bet against my own side, and I'm gonna go with a 2-1 win for Bournemouth. I think both managers know each other. Both managers get on very, very well with each other. And I think there's going to be a lot of it's going to be like a chess piece, really, where they're trying to work each other out and what each other's doing. It's going to be quite an intriguing watch. Um, Iraola, I think, has got the style right here now, and I'm hoping he'll go from strength to strength. I think we're seeing the shoots now that he is going to continue this. Um, of course, disappointed to concede a goal right at the very end against Sheffield United. Like I say, I've been forgetting about that one. I've been going, yeah, 3-0 win, and completely forgot about it. But I actually think it's going to be difficult, but I think a 2-1 win, for Bournemouth. Of course, the fixture congestion, and this is one thing that I'd like to throw back to you, is, well, let me give you my goal scorers. I think Marcus Tavernier and I think Dom Solanke will score for ourselves. I did say to Martin yesterday that Ollie Watkins would probably grab one, but if he's
Mm,
not playing, maybe Leon Bailey. I think
hmm
maybe
hmm
Leon Bailey. Matty Cash with a header, from a set piece. To be fair, we've not ever really been very good at defending those. We've got tall defenders, but sometimes, it seems that they're very young central
Yeah,
defenders, Senesi and Zabanier. Um, so I think there's still a lot of learning for them to do. I wouldn't be surprised if a Villa goal comes from corner, but I'm not going to bet against my side, Rich. You know what?
yeah. Of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not. Of course not. I said 2-0 Villa. I said a goal from a set piece off a depends if he plays like concert right back, he'll put Diego Carlos in at centre back. and I said either him or Pau Torres if he.
Yeah.
And then I think I said Diaby because he got the goal on Thursday. But I do think it'd be a tough game. But yeah, I mean the fixture list is crazy, and obviously that's going to be managed by all managers, and there are going to be some strange results over this December time. Even the top teams are going to get beat, so it's going to be really strange to who can hold their nerve.
See, that was going to be my question to you because, of course, with the fixtures, you've got 8 fixtures in December. It's a case of, right, okay, you've got Man City, you've got Arsenal after ourselves. I think I've got those the wrong way around, actually.
Yes.
Arsenal
No,
first,
that's
then
right.
Man
Yeah,
City.
that's
But
right.
where do you prioritize now? Because those two games are big games for Aston Villa. Would you prioritize those 2 games and think, right, okay, we might be able to beat Bournemouth with a slightly weaker side if players need resting? Of course, you played against Legia Warsaw on Thursday. What's Unai Emery going to do about that? Um, there's lots of question marks for me as how he's going to manage it going forwards because there's so much football that you're going to be playing during this month that I think he's going to have to mix it a little bit. But does he prioritize this game? Does he think that maybe he can get away with a slightly weaker side against us?
I mean, the Ollie Watkins situation is if he's not fit enough to start, then you would have to rest him and go with a
Yeah,
John Duran or someone else. So that's out of the question. In terms of potentially weaker side the squad's going to have to be managed either way. But Emery's always been a manager that just takes each game as it comes, and I think he would rather look at it as not necessarily like, oh, we'll beat Bournemouth and then prepared to lose to Man City or Arsenal. It's like he'll look at it as an 8-game, like in terms of he'll look at each game as it comes,
yeah.
but then he'll assess it as, well, we got 15 points from 7 games or whatever it is. So I don't think it matters where the results come from. He will look at it over the course. He'll manage each game as it comes and then look at it over the course of it and think, okay, we've amassed these points. It doesn't matter where they came from or who they came against, which is what I said at the start. Lose
Yeah.
against Bournemouth, but we're not going to let that dwell and then kind of look to get a result against City and Arsenal. So yeah, look, it's going to be a big old game on Sunday, and one that we are really looking forward to. So Craig, thank you very much for jumping on, mate.
Not a
Where
problem
can
at all.
everyone find you for your Bournemouth content?
So the channel is called Up the Cherries in All Departments, UTCIAD. So we've got interviews, we've got previews, um, we've got raw reaction videos as well on there. We've got a podcast which I think has taken a couple of weeks off, but yeah, we will be restarting that as well. And there's also other bite-sized bits. Well, I say bite-sized bits, but long bits because, like I say. I made the very infamous suggestion earlier on. Well, when things were getting tough for Iraola, of right, okay, who's the man that is American, because of course American owners, who might be able to come in, get some instant results, don't want him permanently. And I turned around and I said, Jesse Marsh might not be necessarily a bad idea at this moment in time in our situation. Of course, that went viral. So yes, if you want to watch that infamous video with the square ball, feel free to laugh at it. But yeah, there's all sorts of stuff on there. Some some that I predicted right, some that I got very very wrong.
Well,
Like that
look,
one.
yeah, well, that's what we're here for. I
Exactly.
wanted Steven Gerrard as manager. I put my neck on the line for him. So look, mate, I'm with you in the bad predictions
Yeah.
or bad forecasts. So don't worry about that.
Good stuff.
But yeah, once again, thank you very much for coming
Not
on,
a
mate.
problem at all, mate.
Hit that
Pleasure.
like button, guys. Hit that subscribe button. Help us on the road to 3K. We'll be back with plenty more content across the week. Instant match reaction, full match reaction, fans forum. You know the score. But yeah, thank you all for watching. And as always, remember, we all follow the Villa. Thanks, everyone.
Up and running, and Villa is loud.